Hello, Health Dream. Wanted to talk to you today about Medical Medium's second book, Life-Changing Foods. Save yourself and the ones you love with the hidden healing powers of fruits and vegetables. We all know that fruits and vegetables are good for us. I don't think I really knew how critical they were to all the functions of our body until I started reading the Medical Medium. Came in late to the game, but hey, better late than never for sure. And I'm happy that I found it, because even in midlife, I have a whole new lease on life. So I'll go through a little bit about how the book is structured. This book is less reading. You could certainly read the whole book, but it's more of I think, or I use it more as a reference guide. So it starts out obviously with a foreword and an introduction. There's part 1, 2, 3, and then the index, which to me, I count that in this book because I find it to be most helpful. In part 1, it's called Rising Out of the Ashes. And then the first chapter is Save Yourself. The truth about what's holding you back. And he talks about the unforgiving 4. And these are the toxins that we've talked so much about that are in our daily lives that we may or may not be aware of, but that are hurting our health and hurting our immune system. Radiation, heavy toxic metals. So we talked about the heavy metal detox smoothie, and I'll put that here, that video. Viral explosion, DDT. And then he goes on to talk about the adrenaline addiction, which is, adrenaline has its uses in fight or flight, but it's not good for us to have adrenaline flowing through us all the time. It's very destructive. So it causes a cortisol response, which causes inflammation. And why do we have this? Well, it's due to stress. The rest of this chapter goes into the fight for food, diminishing sunlight, our water deficiency, food crisis, just how our food is not as healthy as it once was. The next chapter is adaptation, move forward with the world around you. So we can change the world, but clearly we're not going to. I hope we do, and we move towards that, but it's, will it change significantly in our lifetime? I don't know. I mean, this pandemic is showing us that just a month or two of less human activity very greatly improves the quality of life on our planet as far as pollution and toxins are concerned. So I do hope that the next generations see that, and hopefully this is something that is motivating them, especially those who are impacted by not being able to go to school, right? Step back and really look at what we're doing to the planet. I mean, if there's no greater illustration than what's happening right now, I don't know what is, and I don't want to know what is, right? If we don't take action now, they say in the next 10 years, the Earth will be beyond the point of recovery as far as global warming is concerned. That's scary. So I'm hoping this is giving people a little insight as to, hey, you're not impervious to catastrophe. You can't just keep egregiously stripping the Earth and polluting it. But we go on. So this chapter talks about dealing with stress and how stress impacts our lives and our food choices and the things that we need to do to deal with that stress. Talks about antioxidants for aging, glucose consumption, miracle mineral salts, and B12 for happiness. Then the next chapter in part 1, and the final chapter, is Food for the Soul, talking about our spiritual connection to food and why we need to have more of a personal connection to making our own food, which I am not. That is somewhere where I fall greatly. And thank goodness I met someone who's cooking for me right now. But I do need to be better about that. But also finding maybe places where people will cook you healthy food, like, Whole Foods buffet and things like that. That's more about where I hope we go to as a society. Interpreting cravings during detox, and what sugar cravings really mean, because don't we all have those? I have those. Not terribly bad like I used to, but I like a sweet. I like a little sweet, but usually it's in the form of a dried fruit. So I don't think that's it's not as bad as craving bagels and chocolate like I used to. So then we go to part 2 of the book, The Holy Four. And this section basically is divided into 4 parts. You have your fruits, your vegetables, herbs and spices, and wild foods. And then it talks a little bit about each one. So for example, fruits. And it goes into apple. Okay, first one is apples. Okay, you have apples. It talks about why apples are great. Here, why apples are great, a little bit about apples, conditions that apples could help you to fix and improve. Talks about this particular one. I don't think they all talk about emotional support, but it does talk about, it does. Okay. So it talks about emotional support and how apples may help you in your emotions. Because remember, I know that it seems silly to say something like that, but what are your emotions? Well, your emotions are feelings that you have that come from hormones, right? So feelings aren't just these vaporous things. They're physical reactions in your body. Well, it's circular, right? If I don't have the proper nutrients to create certain emotions, then or to over create other emotions like depression and sadness, well, then I'm going to feel that way and feel those emotions. So our emotions and food and nutrition and health are intertwined inseparably. Keep that in mind. And then a little spiritual lesson about each. Take or leave that if you want. Take or leave all of it if you want. But I don't talk about the medical medium because it didn't change my life. It changed my life literally 180. So this is why I talk about this advice. And then it goes into tips about apples. This one about which color apples are best, or try how many you should maybe try to eat in a day. This says 3. God bless you if you could do that. That's a lot of food. Apples are good though. I put them in juice. And then it will give you some recipes that contain apples. Usually one, maybe 2. I think maybe more, and the herbs might have more than one recipe. But it goes through all these foods. So you have apricots, avocados, and then it'll go into the vegetables and the herbs and spices and why they're good for you. And I can't say enough about it. But, to read a book like that, I guess you can if you really want to. You probably have time now, and I have time now, but what I do is I use this as a reference, and I'll explain more about that later. But let's talk about part 3, arming yourself with the truth. And the first chapter in this section talks about fertility and infertility and maybe hidden causes and why we're seeing so much of that. It's because a lot of it, we don't have the proper support in our bodies, and our body is just saying, no, can't do it. This is not good for you. But I'll let him give you the details of that. And then he talks about meditations for fertility, healing foods for the reproductive system. So that's especially helpful. I know a lot of people that have trouble with that. And that could be interesting. Can't hurt, for sure. It's just food. Harmful health fads and trends. Nightshades. Goitrogenic foods. Vitamin D megadoses. Vitamin B12 deficiency. B12 shots. All these different things. I'm not sure if this is alcohol and herbal products. Prebiotics. foods that make life challenging. I could already guess what they are. Yes. Dairy, eggs, corn, and wheat, and canola oil. Natural flavors. So there, he's talking mostly about MSG, which is almost impossible to really find. You have to have a PhD in MSG to find whether or not it's in your food. There's so many different names for it. It's terrifying. And it's terrifying that that's allowed to happen in our food supply, that companies are allowed to do that. Because if you really want to eat the right foods and protect yourself, they make it very difficult. And then finally, the last chapter is life-changing angels. So if you're spiritual, that will be particularly interesting for you. And then there's an afterword. And then comes the index, which, like I said, is particularly important to me and why I use this as a reference. Because if I have any issue or if I have a friend with any issue, I'll go to the index. So here's abdominal distension. And then there's pages 129, 133, 225, 233, and 247. So I'll go to all those pages. And those pages will inevitably link to some food. So 129 is asparagus. So if you have abdominal distension, you might want to try to eat more asparagus. And that's how I try to improve any symptoms or conditions that I think I have or that my friends have. I certainly have done this for other people. I feel like these books are a godsend. They are a godsend, literally. I mean, that's what he says they are, and I believe they are because I've lived it. And, you know, I think most people aren't open to it because it seems crazy. And I'm not going to lie, I felt the same way, but I lived it. And now I can't tell you enough how I'll shout it from the rooftops. It's particularly important, and especially now that we see our immune systems are compromised as a society. It's the few and the fortunate ones who maybe grew up on farms, or, you know, farms aren't even devoid of chemicals, but maybe grew up in Alaska somewhere with fresh food and water, and, you know, I don't even know who these people can be, but I'm sure they exist out there, and they're very fortunate. Do we deride them for being strange and different and kooky and woohoo maybe, and little granola, la granola? Yeah, we do, but good for them. You know, they're the smart ones. They're the ones that we all must emulate now. And we always should have, but it's too easy to eat some fries, right? So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want me to look up in the index anything for you, happy to do that too. All right, peace out.